Imagine waking up in a country where your money, overnight, is no longer worth anything. The bill that bought you a meal yesterday can't even pay for a piece of candy today. It sounds like an apocalyptic movie script, but this has been, and still is, the reality for millions around the world. What happens when governments lose control of the economy? How do wars, banking collapses, and poorly planned decisions trigger a chain of events that destabilize the very value of money? What causes a society to stop trusting the piece of paper they carry in their pockets? In this video, you'll embark on a journey through the greatest monetary transformations in history, forged in the fire of crises. You'll discover how World War I destroyed the gold standard and paved the way for rampant inflation in 1920s Germany. You'll understand why the crash of 1929 collapsed the global economy and forced countries to rethink their currencies. You'll see how, at Bretton Woods, the world chose the US dollar as its global reference, and how that decision still affects your wallet today. But it's not just the past at stake. We'll also explore how digital money is being shaped by recent crises, such as the pandemic and current geopolitical conflicts, and why each new crisis reignites the question, who or what should we trust to preserve our purchasing power? Get ready for a powerful narrative with striking visuals, historical documents, and surprising connections. A deep dive into the cracks of the financial system, where every crisis left marks that molded money as we know it. If you think you understand what you carry in your wallet or see in your bank app, wait until you learn how it was forged. The history of money isn't a straight line of progress. It's a trail marked by breakdowns, collapses, and reinventions. Each crisis, each war, each breakdown in trust in the economic system left deep scars on the very concept of value. The money we carry in our pockets today, or see as numbers on a screen, is the result of centuries of trial and many errors in creating a reliable, functional, and lasting system. At first, value was intrinsic: gold, silver, salt, grains, tangible, measurable things. But it only took a war to disrupt trade routes, or an ambitious king deciding to mint more coins than he had metal for, and everything would collapse. That's how inflations, popular revolts, and loss of trust in currency emerged. In desperate times, societies were forced to change, to replace what no longer worked with new ideas, sometimes brilliant, sometimes catastrophic. During the 20th century, the world experienced some of the most dramatic monetary shifts in history. World War I didn't just destroy lives, it completely destabilized European financial systems. Germany, for instance, plunged into such extreme hyperinflation that billion-mark notes were used to light fires. Just a few years later, the 1929 stock market crash would shake even the pillars of the American economy, leading to mass bank failures and a redefinition of the state's role in managing money. But it was after World War II that money truly became a tool of global power. The United States took the lead and imposed the dollar as the global reference currency, officially ending the gold standard. This transformed the role of national currencies and reinforced the idea that trust, not gold reserves, was the new engine of the economy. This turbulent journey reveals more than just numbers and charts. It exposes human fragility and adaptability in the face of scarcity, fear, and ambition. By understanding these transformations, we begin to see money not as something static, but as a direct reflection of our collective decisions and the pressures of our time. And that is exactly what you'll witness in the coming minutes. It all began with a promise that value lay in metal. For centuries, civilizations trusted coins minted in gold and silver. This system seemed unshakable. After all, who would doubt the worth of something so rare and coveted? But the outbreak of war put that trust to the test. World War I forced governments to print paper money without corresponding gold reserves. To finance military efforts, treasuries were emptied, and what was once solid, backed currency became mere ink on paper. People began to realize that the money in their hands could lose its value overnight, and it did. Post-war Germany experienced one of the most drastic economic events in history. In 1923, inflation was so absurd that salaries had to be paid twice a day, as banknotes lost value within hours. Workers pushed wheelbarrows full of marks just to buy a loaf of bread. Money, now printed in astronomical amounts, became worthless. Children played with bundles of notes like building blocks. This wasn't just a financial tragedy, it was social, political, and emotional. Trust was shattered, and in its vacuum rose dangerous extremes. This instability paved the way for the rise of authoritarian regimes like Nazism. The gold standard, which had underpinned monetary value for centuries, was abandoned in many parts of the world. In times of crisis, governments realized that controlling money, rather than depending on precious metals, was more effective. But that freedom came with risks. Printing too much led to inflation. Printing too little caused recession. The balance was fragile. The world began to understand that money's value was increasingly tied to politics rather than to gold stored in vaults. These events left deep marks on collective consciousness. People began to distrust financial institutions. Banks collapsed, savings evaporated, and many stored gold and silver at home for fear of repeating the nightmare. Crises not only changed how money was produced, they altered people's behavior regarding the very concept of value. From that point on, every currency bore not only the image of a ruler, but the silent reminder that nothing is guaranteed, not even money itself. While Europe struggled to recover from the economic trauma of World War I, the United States experienced the Roaring '20s, a decade of consumption, speculation, and apparent prosperity. Credit was easy, optimism soared, and thousands invested in the stock market without understanding what they were buying. The media glorified overnight millionaires. It seemed like money had lost all connection to reality. Then, in 1929, it all came crashing down. The Wall Street crash wasn't just a financial collapse, it was a cultural earthquake. Entire families lost their life savings. Businessmen took their own lives. Thousands of banks failed in quick succession. The U.S. financial system, and by extension, the global economy, revealed itself to be dangerously fragile, built on speculation and blind trust. The Great Depression that followed wiped out jobs, incomes, and dignity. For the first time, the world saw that money itself held no power without a solid foundation of trust, control, and, most importantly, responsibility. This crisis had global consequences. Exporting countries saw their economies collapse. Governments began intervening directly in markets, creating stronger central banks, stricter regulations, and bold fiscal policies. The state ceased being a mere observer and became an active agent in the monetary system. It was during this time that economists like John Maynard Keynes proposed that in times of crisis, governments should spend more, not less, even if it meant going into debt. In the years that followed, other crises continued shaping the financial system. Uncontrolled inflation in Latin America in the 1980s, Mexico's default, the confiscation of savings in Brazil in 1990, the Asian crisis in 1997, and many others. In each one, money was reinvented, sometimes as a lifeline, sometimes as a weapon, sometimes as a promise of prosperity, other times as a symbol of oppression. And through all these stories, one constant remained. Money only has value as long as there is faith in it. At its core, every monetary crisis is a crisis of trust. Whether we're talking about paper bills, coins, or digital bits, when people stop believing, the entire system shakes. That's when governments step in, trying with speeches, plans, and reforms to restore what cannot be printed. If history has taught us anything, it's that money has never been just metal or paper. It's a collective construction, a useful fiction upheld by people's belief in its worth. And when that belief is broken by war, collapse, poor decisions, or sheer greed, the entire economic structure begins to crumble. Every crisis repeats familiar patterns: too many promises, too little oversight, and a disconnection between real value and perceived value. Money drifts away from reality, and when that happens, correction strikes, brutal, painful, and relentless. Yet it is during crises that the deepest changes are born. The fall of the gold standard gave rise to modern fiat currency. The 1929 collapse led to social policies and a stronger state role in the economy. Hyperinflation taught entire nations to fear money printing. The 2008 crisis exposed the dangers of an unregulated, debt-driven financial system. Each shock forced us to reconsider what we think is safe, what we call valuable. Now, in the 21st century, we face a new transformation. Cryptocurrencies, digital money, and asset tokenization once again raise the same question: who or what do we trust? Do central banks still hold control? Does physical currency still have a future? Or are we heading toward a new crisis built on code and algorithms? The answer is still forming, but one thing is certain. Where there is uncertainty, there is room for crisis and reinvention. So next time you look at the note in your wallet or your bank app balance, remember, none of it has value by itself. The value lies in the invisible social contract we maintain with one another, in the stability we allow, the vigilance we uphold, and the historical memory we preserve. Money is not static, it is shaped, and almost always it is shaped by crisis. If you enjoyed this journey through the history of money and crisis, like the video, share it with someone curious about economics, and subscribe to the Mundo Enriquecedor channel. Here, we bring economics to life with context and depth. See you next time.